Hello out there, my name is Laolu Akonde and you are on to Inside Sources. And here's my take for today entitled, Treating Insecurity as an Existential Threat Requires More. We normally close this program, Inside Sources, saying Nigeria will prevail. That means Nigeria will win. Why? Because there are strong forces against Nigeria on several fronts. Insecurity is one of those fronts. So, with the perennial problems of insecurity in our country, one of the compelling truths that we must remind ourselves about is that our country is faced with an existential threat, which has some deep foreign dimensions. Our enemies are not just within, they are also without. And there is a concerted effort to overwhelm this nation. And such an onslaught demands of us to put up our very best in the defense of our country. Regrettably, we are still grappling with how to do that. Governor Babagana Zulum is one of the governors you have to take seriously in Nigeria. This past week, the governor reminded us of the existential threat that insecurity, banditry, and kidnappings have become in our country. He had to raise an alarm that we are losing ground against the terrorists in Boko Haram. According to him, and I quote, "Today, it is unfortunate that the renewed attacks and kidnappings in many communities almost on a daily basis without confrontation signals that Borno State is losing ground," unquote. In fact, at the same event where Governor Zulum spoke, the Shehu of Borno claimed that 3 local governments are now under the control of Boko Haram: Guzamala, Mate, Habadam. He also said that there are still some control in the 4th local government, that is Moba, in Borno State. About the same time, the governor of Plateau State, Caleb Mutfwang, who is on his first term, says the recent killings in parts of the state are genocidal. As if that is not bad enough, Governor Mutfwang added, and I quote, "As I'm talking to you, there are no less than 64 communities that have been taken over by bandits on the plateau between Bokos, Bakin Ladi, and Riyom local government areas. They have been taken over, renamed, and people are living there conveniently on lands they push people away to occupy," unquote. Those are serious problems. The candor of Mutfwang reminds us of the warnings of retired General T.Y. Danjuma, who has said it over and again that Nigeria is under attack by forces within and without who are set to ruin the country. We know the efforts of the Tinubu presidency to deal with the several chambers of insecurity across the country, but clearly we haven't done enough over the years, cumulatively. These perennial problems of insecurity for about 2 decades now demands more urgency and more decisiveness like never before. We need enough troops on the grounds. Our troops are stretched far too thin, whether it is in the police or in the military. Sometimes even the enemies manage to muster superior firepower. That must stop. We need permanent security posts in several of the problematic places. It seems the plan just to send the troops to quell situations when there are killings like this and then those troops leave the places is inadequate. The way the enemies are able to regroup, gather again, and attack means we must do better. We need state police or decentralizing the police. This country is far too large for one command system, and we have seen this played out over and over again. We must do better. Then, while we continue to celebrate the gallantry of our security forces in these many battles, we need an increased level of accountability from our security chiefs. And yes, we must spend more on the troops and do better in the area of welfare for the troops. And at the same time, we must disallow security financing to become an industry without some accountability, even if discreetly. We also need to deal with the possibility of inside collusion. Then there are also underlying political and ethnic issues, and we must commend the governor of our plateau who called our attention to some of these inordinate happenings, such as genocidal massacre in his state. These have to be confronted squarely outside of military and security handling. For instance, we must build mutual trust and a national cohesion. We are not at the optimal point in those areas, and we must do better. In conclusion, let us bring up again the words of retired General Danjuma, and I quote, "The number one problem today in Nigeria is security, and we must end the pandemic, stop the killings that are going on in our country as soon as possible. Those of you who are still serving, no excuses, and absolutely no," he said. And there you have it. Inside Sources will be right back. Welcome back to Inside Sources. Today, as we continue our conversation on the future of our great country, I have with me a foremost Nigerian politician, somebody who has been in elected office as way back as 1979, when he was the youngest member of the Oyo State House of Assembly. That was in 79, and 83 became a commissioner of Information, Home Affairs and Culture in Oyo State. And then later on in 2015 became the Minister of Communication. And of course, several other positions in between. I'd like to welcome to Inside Sources, Barrister Adebayo Shitu. My brother, it's good to see you.
It's my pleasure.
Again.
It's my pleasure.
It's a conversation on the future of Nigeria. If you look at where the country is today, what will be your own assessment of where we are and where we are going?
Well, Nigeria is definitely a very big country, the largest on the African continent. It's also the largest in terms of population. For the African, Nigeria is the home to everybody. We have more than 300 tribes, languages all over. There are some states in this country where you have up to 20, 30 different languages. These potentials, portend, great advantage for us. Particularly if you also look at the fact that in terms of natural resources, we had always been, talking about petrol. The resources we have in terms of mineral resources are potentially more than the petroleum resources and gas resources we have in this country. Unfortunately, we have not been able to, prospect them. I'm happy that the current governor, in particular, the Minister of Mineral Resources, has been doing a wonderful job. I just pray that he will be able to reach and carry along other Nigerians for us to jointly work on making the best out of our mineral resources, which are available in every state of this country. But you see, our problem has always been about leadership. And I want to give a very clear example of Rwanda. Rwanda, in terms of development, in terms of quality leadership, is not up to 20 years old. But Rwanda today is...
especially after the genocide.
Today, Rwanda is one of the best governed, country on the African continent. And this is something which is pleasing, even though in comparison, in terms of, largeness, in terms of all other potentials, we are not on the same pedestal as Rwanda in terms of, size and all of that. But in terms of governance, I think we have a lot to learn, from the leadership in Rwanda. So my hope is that with the Bola Tinubu administration, we will be able to, make better use of the resources of this country and of the opportunity to ensure that Nigeria, grows by leaps and bounds.
Thank you so much for those opening comments. So I'd like to just take it a little bit further where you talked about the problem of leadership. What do you think is the main issue which is the reason why we are struggling with leadership? In your own view, what's the main issue?
You see,
the main issues?
Yes, over the years, even the Nigerian population has not held matters. You will recall that for the past 25 years or thereabout, we have had an experiment with democracy. The experiment is a continuing one. From my personal experience, when you go to the ordinary man who bears the brunt of the misgovernance of this country, no matter your quality, no matter what you propose to do in terms of qualitative, governance, if you go to seek for their assistance in terms of support,
yes,
instead of the ordinary man asking, what would you do if we vote you in? They are not concerned about that. What they are concerned is, what did you bring for us? That means that they are not concerned. Once you can give them pittance, once you can give them something that would satisfy their immediate greed,
they are fine.
They are okay.
How did we get there, Barrister?
Well, I think over the years, it has become a tradition over the years, perhaps. Of course, poverty has, contributed to the perspective that the ordinary Nigerian has today. Because over the years, they've not really, never really enjoyed good governance. They don't even know what good governance implies, which they should aspire to have. So the immediate need is, what did you bring for us? So a money misruled who has enough money to throw out, even if he doesn't have anything to contribute, is most likely to get the support of the electorate to get into governance. And when they get into governance, because they are not prepared, they don't even understand what good governance means. You are good to go to get support and so on. Just yesterday, I was in a court, and there was the discussion of a former governor of one of the states in this country who attempted to buy a wristwatch for $290,000, one polo wristwatch. And then he was...
You were in court?
Yes, I was in court.
As one of the...
As a lawyer.
Okay.
And it was not my case. It was another man's, a lawyer's case.
But you were present.
But I was there. The complaint was a former governor was scammed by scammers who promised to sell to him a wristwatch, polo wristwatch of $290,000. And I become, mad at that news.
So how did the governor, how was he going to pay?
He had paid actually. He had paid for it.
And he wasn't supplied.
Cash, and he wasn't supplied, and he had to report.
He paid cash.
209, that was 430-something million naira for just one watch. And I was asking, what job is that wristwatch going to do? What magic? That would show you the extent of corruption within the political class in this country.
That's a really, you just pointed to what I think is one of the major problems.
Yes, it is corruption.
It
is corruption.
It's ridiculous.
You see, unfortunately also, there's no training ground for politicians to really learn what they intend to go and do when they get into offices. Any Tom, Dick and Harry can just, once he gets money to buy his way, he rises up, he could become a governor. And when he becomes a governor, the pulse of the state is firmly in his pocket, and he can do what he likes with the resources.
And it's a big problem, and I'm happy that, you were able to even connect corruption and poverty, because if you look at it, it's like they feed each other.
It's Siamese twin.
Yeah, and I think I must say, I'll make a comment and I'll let you react to it. I think a lot of our politicians, or at least a good number of our politicians, have also weaponized corruption. Because, I think you are correct that, a lot of the people want something now from the...
Rather than tomorrow.
But I think it's like you said, it's an impact of how much poverty we are dealing with. And you know that even in both of us are from Southwest Yoruba, you know that poverty is considered to be like a curse. They call it Oshi. So if people's eyes are not opened, that is where they will remain.
Well, I want to believe that.
And it's the work of leadership to change that.
I want to believe that. Nigeria missed it when the late chief of Bafemi Awolowo lost his attempt to become president of Nigeria. Because if you know how he governed the southwestern region, his ambition, his philosophy ultimately was life more abundant
yeah.
for everyone.
Yes.
And in the process of getting that done, he made education free and compulsory.
Yes.
At all levels. He also made availability of health services also free. And then, integrated infrastructure development and full employment.
Right.
If you can sustain all of these at the national level for a period of 5 to 10 years, people will be able to reason correctly. People will be able to know what their rights are. Like the late Chief also had said. He said, if you refuse to train the children of the poor, they would ensure that your own children cannot sleep with both eyes closed. So the nexus is established between poverty and also banditry. Because today in the Northwest,
and
for
kidnapping
instance,
and all the kinds of stuff,
you have an upsurge of criminality by way of banditry, by way of kidnapping, and so on and so forth, in rebellion to the deniers of these people over the years. And they see those who denied them as the elites, as those who had denied them. And so they want to rebel against them.
So Chief Governor Audu is correct.
Yes,
it's right.
So but when he was being opposed to become in that time, people thought they had a right to do that. They thought, they were enjoying themselves and all of that. But at the end of the day, the impact and implication of it is on the national psyche. It's everybody is being affected.
It is. So in your view, you are a politician and you've been in government, like I said during the introduction since 1979. You are even Attorney General of your state in 2007 before you became minister. So in your own view and your own experience, how do we deal with this problem of corruption and poverty? What should we do that we have not done?
Well, unfortunately, let me say this. When Buhari came on, Buhari was my leader, he was my Oga as minister.
Yes.
But I don't fail to pinpoint issues of reality and of substance. The fact that you have been my Oga does not mean if I see a mode.
We share the same vision on that.
When Buhari was supported in his aspiration to become president because of the antecedents of a no-nonsense anti-corruption crusader
that they had
of him. But with due respect to him and to everyone in that class, in the 8 years of his administration, there was no single mention of anti-corruption. There was no single mention of it. To the extent that several people who were very close to his office, to his, personality and all, engaged in all kinds of corrupt practices. And he showed clear lack of competence to fight corruption and to withstand it, unfortunately. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
Now, we had this similar situation in Ghana before Rawlings came. And, I'm not praying that we should have that kind of, devastating, revolution in Nigeria. But we must really sit down. Government must sit down to look at these
political leaders generally.
Political leaders as a desperate, and it is often said that desperate diseases are by desperate means cured. So, unless we attack this issue of corruption holistically and not minding whose ox is God, corruption will continue to have a toll on governance in Nigeria. And things will continue to get worse. And then you have the consequences of instability, the consequences of insecurity, the consequences of kidnapping, and all kinds of.
Very important point that you made about the administration that we both served. You were there for the first time. Working with the vice president, I was there for the whole 8 years, and I agree with you. Well, in my view, I think the first time was even a little bit. There was quite a bit of organization, some coordination, some focus. I think the whole thing just completely unravel in the second term. That's my own view. But my point is that, so in 2015, and I'm sure you probably have the same experience, all of us thought that with Buhari, there was going to be a lot of change. You know, in fact, the campaign was change.
Exactly.
And Nigerians bought
into it.
Nigerians bought into it. 8 years after, APC has not delivered. Do you think, you know, it's going to be 2 months, 2 years now with Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu next month. It's going to be 2 years. Do you think the Tinubu administration, its leadership is beginning to go in that right direction? Because my own view is that I expect President Tinubu to fix what President Buhari couldn't fix. You know, and I'm sure that you too, you must have gotten a lot of pushback because you are critical of the, and you know, my view is your view that, look, reality is reality. The fact that I served doesn't mean that I will deny reality.
Yeah.
A lot of work was done in the administration, no doubt about that. I can talk about social investment program, a lot of great things, even infrastructure.
Infrastructure in particular.
But in corruption, it's, you know, I mean, it's very embarrassing that we didn't quite, President Buhari did not quite solve the problem in a very significant way. But is President Tinubu on the right track? Even on that?
Well, I would rather choose that way. Tinubu is less than 2 years old.
Yeah.
If he has not done anything yet that we have seen on this problem, this is an opportunity for us to remind him that the issue of corruption is a national nightmare. And he has the divine opportunity to really face this issue because of its implication on virtually every other aspect of our national life.
Yeah.
It must be done.
Yeah.
Unless it is done, in another 10, 15 years, people will come and comment and even condemn.
Yeah. It's not even up to 50 years. As soon as it's out, you get to hear the truth.
It is better we remind him that this problem remains a national nightmare of conscionable Nigerians who think that we ought to attend to this problem.
We do. And the same thing with poverty. So the two are intertwined.
Well, again, on the issue of poverty, I know the President Tinubu has been doing a few things by way of, like in regard to education, trying to provide loans and all of that.
Yeah.
My realistic view is what we do need as a nation is not loans but grants for education, and not only at tertiary level, but at all levels. At the time, the late Chief Obafemi provided free education at all levels.
Yeah.
We didn't have petroleum resources.
Exactly.
It was just cocoa resources.
It was entirely internally generated.
And he did it successfully.
Yeah.
How much more now that we have petroleum resources, we have gas resources.
It was done in Second Republic.
During Bonaga's time, we did it.
Yes.
So there's nothing stopping us because the administrative complexities of providing loans, you will need much more money to even recover it over the years in a most unstable, manner and environment. So let education be completely free from primary to secondary to tertiary levels. That because it is a right that the other citizen
be educated
should have. And like he said, if we refuse to provide education at all, free education at all levels, at the end of the money we are supposed to use in providing education, we will use it to try to combat insecurity, banditry, and all kinds of...
Which is where we are today,
Yes.
But, let's shift the discussion a little bit slightly to the states. So if we look at our constitution, the federal constitution, quite a lot of things that we think we should fix. But as it is now, governors have responsibilities and powers to manage health. They have responsibilities and powers to manage education. They have responsibilities and powers to manage agriculture. What I'm saying is that it would seem that the governors themselves ought to be held responsible for the welfare
Which
of their
monies
people.
are these? Is it not the federation account that is being distributed that they have to rely?
But
They must be talk. The president should invite them and say, look, we have gotten to a stage where education should be communally, managed and administered. And so, first line charge on our resources should go to education and should go to health. So that you know that the average Nigerian knows that he has something to take away from
government,
our corporate existence as a country. I mean, there cannot be a negotiation about whether this is right or not right.
There is this idea that is now being discussed very widely, even in the National Assembly, that Nigeria should revert to parliamentary system. I have a view on it, and then I will like to hear your reaction. One of the things, Barrister, Honorable Minister, that I came out with in serving in Villa for 8 years is that the president, under the presidential system, of course, it's expensive, but more importantly, the president is able to sit down and not be held accountable in any public form. He's able to say, okay, SSA media, special advisor, honorable minister, go and deal with it, But in the parliamentary system, if we do it properly, the prime minister, who is the head of government, is going to be sitting in parliament with a on a bench with a table, and across on the other side is the leader of opposition, who will take him or her to task. And then traditionally there is a question time where the prime minister will be asked and he must answer. We don't have those kind of compelling imperative situations under the presidential system. So I am thinking that maybe parliamentary system will help us to increase transparency and accountability. What do you think?
Well, you see, we cannot be jumping from one precedence to another. We were operating the parliamentary system over the years before we, moved on to presidential system. While, appreciating the very fine issue you mentioned about, accountability and, being challenged, you also forget that with the parliamentary system, there's more of instability in governance. Instability in the sense that the moment you have somebody who can mobilize and seek and get a vote of no confidence against a sitting prime minister or a sitting government, that government is gone. It could be just a year after he was sworn. It could be even 6 months.
What's wrong with that?
For how long in the Nigerian situation we keep having change of government every 6 months, every 1 year, every 2 years?
Because it will compel them, in my view, to do better.
It doesn't matter. We must take the Nigerian situation into contention. Remember that the presidential system is today, in today's world, symbolized by the American government. The prime minister system is symbolized by the UK government, which is faster, in comparison, in terms of taking appropriate action. It depends. If you have a laid-back prime minister, you will not have any result. If you have a laid-back president, executive president, you won't have any result. In each of these, the parties have their representatives in government. And we must always also rely on members of the party in parliament. What appeals to me in the presidential system is that you have a chief executive, a chief executive in the real sense of it, who has the power to call the shots and to do things as soon as they become relevant. The fact that we had, with due respect, a Buhari as an executive president who really was never executive in any way, does not mean in all situations. It means Nigerians and the various parties should open their eyes and ensure that the very dynamic and very active people are appointed as their candidates for the presidential system, and then the that they behave the way things are. Imagine a limited liability company which does not have a chief executive, just has a chairman. You know,
so, we will shift, we will move along just so we don't spend too much time, because the Prime Minister is supposed to also be the chief executive. Yeah. But I understand your perspective. But let's move on. You know, party politics. You know, and even this idea of parliamentary system. You know, it's all about party politics. Even right now, we have people in the National Assembly. One of the things that I've also seen is that the way we practice democracy, especially in this republic, good thing, you were there in the Second Republic. How do you compare party politics today with what you had in 1979, 83? What are the differences?
Let me tell you that in those days, when I was a member of the House of Assembly, the governor was all in all, despite the fact that he was not a member of parliament. People deferred to him. It was his wish. I'll give you a personal experience. We got sworn into the then Oyo State House of Assembly on 2nd of October, 1979. On the 8th of October, the governor wrote a one-page letter to the Speaker. Dear Mr. Speaker, please get the undermentioned names approved as commissioners for my government. And the Speaker read the letter. There was no CV of any of them attached, nothing on any of them. We members of the House didn't know most of them. There was also a traditional ruler of Oshogbo at that time,
yes,
who was also included
as minister without portfolio
and as commissioner without portfolio. And then they read it, expecting that we would just approve. And I raised my hand. Of course, I was the youngest member of the House. I said, the system of government is such that for us to approve anybody to become commissioner, we must have full information about them. This is a one-page letter which did not have any information or CV of any of the nominees. And you expect us to behave like a rubber stamp assembly just because it is coming from the governor to approve. There was no previous discussion with us on any of the nominees. Then there was also included a traditional ruler who nominated him. Is it the traditional rulers council who nominated him? Or what? Why was he specified, or, nominated to do what? And so on and so forth. And you know what happened?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker said, as the Speaker, I overrule. Those in favor say aye, those not in favor, the ayes have it, down.
That was it.
That was the end of it.
Well, that's a very interesting story.
That was it. Yeah. That was it.
But
so, I am sure that
that will not happen again.
It may still happen, but maybe it will have been refined. Maybe there will be some refine. I've not seen any of the House of Assembly say no to any of the nominations or, proposals from governors. Usually the governor cages, everybody in the...
So it's interesting that, you have highlighted something that, was happening as far back as 1979, even people can even pinpoint to now. Yes. Look at the issue, and since we're talking about it, look at the issue of the state of emergency in Rivers State. My view is that, the president does have the powers under the Constitution, I think Section 305, to say that, no, I'm going to declare a state of emergency, I'll make a proclamation, and then the National Assembly has 48 hours and all of that. But I don't know where the president got the powers to suspend the governor and the State Assembly. And, ultimately, I want President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to succeed, honestly. And I root for him clearly because, two things. If he doesn't succeed, the Southwest is gone. Progressive politics is buried, and of course, bad for Nigeria. So I hold out that ultimately he will succeed. But this acquisition of powers that the Constitution does not guarantee is a big worry that I have. What's your take?
Well, I am same with you in your view that the president certainly does not have the powers he wielded constitutionally. The worst thing is the fact that even the Parliament,
the National Assembly,
particularly the Senate, did not also do things right in the sense that the law says where you have to vote, we do approval, you have to let people know how many people are for, how many people are against. The worst thing that happened is that even members of PDP in the Senate, nobody raised.
Well, except I think Tambua, Barry Bay, and Senator Dixon, those three walked out. But you are right, and I shall agree that
walking out is not really the solution.
The opposition was completely comatose.
So who do you blame? Who do you blame?
Yeah,
it means that a number of our legislators are not sufficiently matured to live up to the dictates and requirements of the presidential system.
So how do we cure that?
Well, I don't know. It will require the leadership of the various parties. You know one problem we have in this country?
Yes.
People get elected on platforms of different political parties. There's no training platform
of any kind
before they go into the various houses. Nobody is telling them what they are supposed to be doing or not doing. So an ignoramus of an elected person goes there only with the mindset of going to make money. And that's the most the most permanent thing, the most stable thing that you can expect when people get elected in this country. I expect, for instance, that after election, if not before election, after election, the parties should organize, congresses or meetings to really reorientate the minds of people going to the various, for them to know. Even ministers, nobody reorientates any minister. You get nominated and approved, and then you become a minister. You don't know what to do. You may be a lawyer. They may put you in the works. You may be an engineer. You may be asked to go and handle information dissemination and all. And you are completely on your own.
Interesting, point that you raised. So what do you think of the way we practice party politics today? Because I see that there is no forum. For instance, you are a member of APC now.
Yes.
Is there a forum where...
Honestly, I've had occasions where I was being interviewed in television stations and the host will ask me, what is the policy of your party on this? And I said, I'm not aware of any position of the party because the party has not invited us to sit and agree on issues of specific relevance. And that is the truth.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I have to say this. I am saying what I want to say because there's so far no platform for me to say what I'm going to say. After election, we all worked very hard to get the president elected. But there has not been any forum to discuss any issue on party position, on any issue. So the individual relies on his own intelligence to say whatever he wants to say.
And that's,
there's no attachment.
Has he always been like that since Second Republic?
Unfortunately, I think so. Unfortunately, we have not developed,
because I'm
getting elected and filling positions.
The reason why I raised that question was that, Chief Aldrogbe, I'm sure you must know him.
Yes,
he was also sitting on that chair.
He was my colleague.
And he said that in the Second Republic, that he was a federal minister. Yeah. And Shehu Shagari was presiding. He said it on this program publicly. And Adisa Akinoye made a phone call, during the cabinet meeting, and to show how powerful the party and its chairman was, Shehu Shagari stopped the fake meeting to go and take a call of Adisa Akinoye, who was the chief Adisa Akinoye, who was the chairman of the party.
Yes.
So his view was that there has been and he said that doesn't even happen anymore. Nobody can talk to the president. Nobody can
the president is superior to the
party. And the governor in the state also.
And the governor in the state. So, I mean, nobody. They got a national chairman of a party or the state chairman of a party would not even do anything that will annoy the chief executive of government. They won't do it.
And is that how party democracy ought to work?
It should be because before the executive is the party. It is the party that produces the presidential candidate who eventually becomes president and produces whatever. Well, because once a man becomes president or he becomes governor, he's the one who controls the purse. He's the one who makes appointments. He is the one who awards contracts. He's the one who does everything by way of personal aggrandizement, personal benefit. And a national chairman who knows he will need one thing or the other from Mr. President will certainly
be of good behavior. Okay, let's move along because I wanted you to talk about, your time as Minister of Communication. You were Minister of Communication from 2015 to 2019, and there are quite a few things that I would like to talk about, but I also wanted you to give us some of your own reflections. What are the things that you will say are the main things that you were able to achieve? And what are the things that maybe you didn't get enough time to achieve?
Well, I thank God that I had the privilege of running that ministry. I was never a communications person. I was never an engineer and so on. I was just an administrator who came on board and did the best to ensure that communications ministry was respected and was respectable and, was guided appropriately. I have a whole lot of achievements there. But some of the negative things that happened that makes me so sad, having served at the time I served. Number one, I recall that Nick Comsat, Nigerian,
communication
satellite, has one satellite in orbit when I came. That made, and there were so many companies in Asia and Middle East which had, 3, 4, 5 satellites in orbit. And Nigerian entities, companies, establishment agencies, rather than patronizing NECOMSAT, were patronizing foreign agencies. And I looked at it, I said, why would Nigerian agencies of even the government not patronize government's own agency and prefer Turkish agency, prefer so many other, Asian and European agencies?
So what did they say?
I discovered that it was because of the fear that when that one satellite collapses, all their information and data will be destroyed. It's like you are traveling, you have a transport company from Abuja to Lagos, and you don't have a spare time. If there's an accident on the way or there's a tire burst, that's the end of it. So I went to China to negotiate with the manufacturers of our satellite, of the only satellite we have. Number one, to produce 2 new satellites, additional satellites. And I also went to Chinese Import-Export Bank to finance those 2 satellites.
Interesting.
We negotiated for $550 million and they agreed to finance it.
Oh, wow.
But when I got to, the Federal Executive Council and I gave a report, it was opposed by one of the key people to the president, and that killed the project.
Who was in the minister?
Completely. He was not a minister, one of these, big men in the executive. You
didn't get any other support?
Neither. I mean, when the guy talks, who else would oppose him?
And the president was presiding.
And that killed it.
So that was
By now, we would have had 3 satellites, the existing 1 and 2 extra ones. And with that, we'll be able to really market the services of NECOMSAT and even enforce compliance and patronage by all Nigerian entities who will spend our money outside rather than spend it inside, and so on. And also all other countries will be able to get it. But the guy said, no. Apparently, He expected I would have come to him to seek his approval. Perhaps there's a deal that
well, you know, Honourable Minister, you know, I know the person you're talking about. I will spare his name, you know, for obvious reasons. But
you know, these are one. Again, I wanted to establish an ICT university for Nigeria. You know the importance of ICT.
Yeah, but what do you need to do a specific university for that?
Because the ICT had become the best thing to ensure. What happened was, on one occasion, some graduates of some Nigerian universities who had graduated from computer studies came to me to see for my financial assistance to go to India. They mentioned that there's a triple IT in New Delhi. Triple IT means Indian Institute of Information Technology. They said they want to go there. I said, but you're already graduates. They said all that they take from their Nigerian universities are mere paper qualifications. With due respect to the respective universities, that is the information I got. That after graduating from Nigeria, you have to go to triple IT to do 6 months course so that you become skilled. You know, and I felt that if I give two of you money to go to India, what of the several other graduates of computer science? Why don't I go and study the situation there and establish an ICT university here which would operate exactly like triple IT of India? So I went to India, understudied them, and came and set up a committee to work on establishing an ICT. You won't believe it. By the time my memo got to the FEC,
yes,
I discovered that most ministers had been compromised by the head of an agency who feared that we were going to take over some facilities to utilize for the ICT university. And everybody was opposing it. So some would say, I know if we set up that thing, we will not be able to pay because blah, blah, blah. But unfortunately, the president said, Barrister Shitu, I commend you for your hard work on this memo. As you can see, this is an over-ambitious project.
Okay, so how about...
And that was the end of it.
How about moving it to the expertise and the skills to some of the existing departments of computer science that we have? How about that?
Will that be my responsibility?
No, well, I mean, you know we're talking about the country now.
People who said it was an over-ambition, they did not provide any alternative. They did not. They said it was an over-ambition, so we should step it down.
Interesting. Well,
so many things like that.
I can imagine, yeah.
So many.
Have you tried to, I mean, so you were there for 4 good years.
Yes.
I think Dr. Pantami was there for under 4 years. I mean, do you guys meet, you know, I mean, yourself, it's the same party, yourself, Pantami, and
no meeting point.
Who is the current...
I mean, Pantami had his own problem, which I would like to go into. And of course, I told you what Bosun said. He refused to see me. And I particularly wanted to see Bosun Tijani, but I never met him. Even till now, I've never met him. Before I left office, I produced this document, which is Minister of Communications restructuring and modernizing the Nigerian Postal Service.
Right.
The aim was to break down NIPOS into 6 different entities to make it more productive and more beneficial to Nigerians. One of the things I wanted to do, I said, NIPOS will operate with a commercial orientation driven by the following incorporated profit-driven subsidiaries. One, NIPOS Digital Financial Services Limited, that is a post bank. I got the idea from China that NIPOS could be used as a bank. Because if you look at banks in Nigeria, we have 774 local government areas in Nigeria. Banks are not available in more than 2/3. I mean, at least more than 1/3.
That's actually true, because I remember when we were doing the social investment program, we were trying to find ways to pay people in rural areas.
Exactly. Banks are not available in most
of the rural areas.
So I felt that since there are post offices virtually in every local government, we can transform the postal post offices
into some kind
of some post bank to do that job of, getting banking services.
And it used to be that people even used to cash money orders. Even in this country.
That is one.
I don't think that happens anymore.
It doesn't. Number two, I also wanted to establish a NIPOS Property and Development Company Limited to take care of the NIPOS post office buildings spread all across the country, which could be used for some other services. Number three, I wanted a NIPOS Transport and Logistics Limited because NIPOS has vehicles. They can carry a lot of luggage for people and all of that. If we transform it into, we have a company.
Yeah, because of our time, Honorable Minister. So what happened? Tell us what happened.
Unfortunately, we had not concluded it before my term ended. And I wanted to see Bosun Tijani, the new minister, through his chief of staff and through my, text message. And the man refused to see me, not even knowing what I wanted to discuss with him.
And that goes to the point I said about, do you guys have a forum?
There's no platform.
We are the party and government.
Nothing.
And,
the party does not have any platform for interaction and for transmission of ideas.
Anyway.
I mean, wisdom is not supposed to be the exclusive preserver for anybody.
Of course.
The fact that you're a minister today does not mean you are more intelligent than people, who have worked for the party.
Yeah.
So if after you are no more in office, you cannot reach any party, any government, official, it is too bad.
Very bad. But I wanted you to, as we begin to conclude, I wanted you to, to tell us what happened in 2019 when you wanted to run for governor and suddenly you were disqualified. Because I know that it's one of the things that was up in your mind to be the governor in your state.
Yes, I still have that ambition to tomorrow.
In 1979, you were not many people have that kind of vast, but can you tell us what happened?
Exactly. I was a minister then. I had purchased form to contest for the governorship, primary.
On the APC?
On the APC. And our leader then is late now. He got Oshiomhole, then national chairman of the party, to disqualify me without any legal basis. He just made an announcement that had been disqualified. For what reason? It was not disclosed. But apparently, he said because I didn't do national service. National service, which I did in the Oyo State House of Assembly.
But you had served as minister at this time.
I had served in several other platforms. It was just
so if you are qualified to be a minister,
yes, then I'm not.
How can you become a governor?
It was just corruption, because the leaders of our party in Oyo State then feared. They hated me becoming governor. Maybe out of envy or whatever. But
it was the party chairman that made the call.
He is not from Oyo State.
And that's Comrade Oshiomhole.
Yes.
So the point is that, is it him that you're responsible or the people in Oyo State?
All of them. I mean, he does not live, he is not from Oyo State. He wouldn't know if he was not approached. And I got all the information and all of that. And the worst thing is that I took the matter up in court. They also compromised my lawyer.
Oh, wow.
It was as bad as that. And I wanted to take up my lawyer, but somebody begged me that I should just...
Yeah, and I've had, the reason issue, I've had this kind of story that you have a situation where a lawyer is compromised by the other side.
It happens.
I even have my brother, who is a senior advocate, whose name I won't mention. Actually, when I was in the US, he will come and tell me that the kind of thing that is happening in the country, that you will have your opposing the client on the other side will be paying.
Yes,
will be paying your own lawyer.
It happened.
This is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, but it happens. I mean, a senior advocate for that matter.
Interesting. Anyway, thank you so much, Barrister Adeboye Shitu, for coming. I remember actually that you also ran to be national secretary of the party. How did that go?
Well, again, for whatever fear. I mean, I think my problem is I am too altruistic, too honest, too incorruptible to be tolerated by so many people in our country.
So how do you manage being a politician?
Well, it just happens you cannot resist the fact that God has given me sufficient intelligence or sufficient dynamism that I would perform optimally wherever you put me. I wanted to be national secretary. I had paid 10 million for the form, like I paid 20 million for the governorship. Till tomorrow, nobody has refunded the money. Either money, nobody has refunded. And at the day we were supposed to, do the primary election in Atiku Square, I was prevailed upon by some leaders from Yoruba land. That day, the leaders had agreed to somebody else who was not going to contest and who never wanted to contest. But they just didn't want me to be the national secretary. Perhaps they felt they would be able to push me around and all of it. And at the end of the day, and out of respect for my leaders, I considered. The funny thing is, when that one who was put there decided to withdraw, again, they went to bring another person, forgetting that I had been, anxious to.
Well, is it not that the thing was zoned to Osun State?
There was no zoning. If there was any zoning, it would be to Yoruba land.
Okay, interesting.
It would be
interesting. Well, anyway, on the upside, you are now the chairman of the Federal Medical University.
I am Pro-Chancellor and Chairman of the Government Council.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Of Devt Umahi Federal University of Health Sciences.
Right.
Well, I thank God for the opportunity. I never lobbied for it.
And now it's not going.
Well, I thank God. Unfortunately, it's a very part-time job. We hold meetings only once in 3 months.
Okay.
And there's no regular salary.
Yeah, well, you don't look like somebody who is waiting for salary, Honorable Minister.
Well, I thank God.
But I'm sure that your services and your experience will be very beneficial to the council and to the university.
I thank God.
And thank you so much. Thank you for your services to the country. Since 1979, when you've been at the House of Assembly in Oyo State, up until when you were minister and even ongoing. Thank you so much for your service.
It's my pleasure.
And thank you for coming to Inside Sources.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
And there you have it, another edition of Inside Sources. Like we always say, Nigeria will prevail because we will not relent. Nigeria will prevail means Nigeria will win. Thank you for watching. My name is Laolu Akonde, and by the grace of God, I'll see you at the next edition.